I think I didn't do anything wrong, just told the truth when everyone was laughing and drinking. It was his birthday, after all. But the next morning, when I saw the envelope from his lawyer on the counter, my hand started shaking. I'm Delaney, 33, and I swear I didn't do anything wrong. I just made a joke. That's what I keep telling myself anyway. It was supposed to be a fun night. Ethan's birthday, all our friends around one big table, the kind of dinner people post online to show how perfect their lives are. I planned every detail, the decorations, the wine, even his speech. I wanted everyone to see how lucky he was to have me, how together we looked. But when he started talking about gratitude and teamwork, I couldn't help myself. I laughed. Then I said something I can't take back. Something about how some men hit 36 with promotions and houses, while others still try their best. Everyone laughed for a second, then stopped. He just looked at me like I'd slapped him. I brushed it off, kept smiling, kept the party moving. I told myself he was being sensitive, but the next morning, he wasn't in bed. Just a folded envelope on the counter with my name typed neatly on it. Legal language, cold and clean. That's when I realized maybe I didn't just make a joke. Maybe I'd just destroyed everything. I wanted everything to be perfect. That's how it started. Ethan's 36th birthday, and I was determined to make it the kind of night people would remember. I spent 2 weeks planning it. Reservations at this trendy downtown restaurant with a private room, gold balloons, a cake that cost more than our monthly water bill, and a guest list that mixed his family with my friends. I told myself it was about celebrating him, but deep down, I think I wanted people to see us, to see me, to see how put together I was, how lucky Ethan was to have a wife who could throw a night like this. When I told Ethan about my plan, he looked tired before I even finished. He said he just wanted something small, maybe dinner with his parents and a quiet night in. I laughed. You turned 36 once, I told him. You deserve a real celebration. He sighed and said he didn't like attention, that birthdays weren't a competition. I told him that's exactly why people thought he lacked ambition, because he never acted like his life was something to celebrate. He frowned at that but didn't argue. He rarely did. That was one of the things that both comforted and irritated me about him. Ethan's parents, Nancy and Tom, arrived early that evening to drop off a gift. Nancy's the kind of woman who always looks like she's judging you, even when she's not. She handed me a box wrapped in silver paper and said they hoped Ethan liked it. A watch, probably. Something practical, dull, predictable. Tom gave me that polite half-smile he always used, the one that said he tolerated me because I was his son's choice, not because he approved. I plastered on my best hostess grin and thanked them. My sister Mia showed up next, bouncing with excitement, phone already out for selfies. She's 29, single, and addicted to documenting everything. This place is amazing, she said, snapping pictures of the candles and wine glasses. People are going to die when they see this post. I smiled, pretending not to care, but I did. That was the whole point, to be seen. Ethan got ready in silence upstairs. When he finally came down, wearing the navy shirt I'd picked out, he looked handsome but uncomfortable, like he was walking into a meeting he hadn't prepared for. I told him he looked great. He said thanks but didn't meet my eyes. At the restaurant, everyone was already there. Cassidy and her husband, my work friend Drew, 2 couples from Ethan's office, and of course, his parents and mine. The room was perfect. Candlelight bouncing off the glasses, a long wooden table, soft jazz playing. I'd even ordered a custom cake with "To the Man Who Never Gives Up" written across the top in gold letters. It sounded supportive when I ordered it, but now it felt a little pointed. Dinner started off fine. Everyone was drinking, laughing, talking about work and travel plans. Ethan relaxed a little, smiling at the stories. I sat next to him, feeling like I'd pulled it off. My phone buzzed under the table. A message from Drew. "You look stunning tonight. He's a lucky guy." I smirked and typed back, "Thanks, but you're the only one who noticed. I told myself it was harmless. Drew and I had this easy flirtation going at work. He'd compliment my outfits. I'd tease him about being too charming. It made me feel seen, something Ethan hadn't done in a while. When the main course arrived, I decided it was time for the speeches. I stood up, glass in hand, and tapped it with a fork until the room quieted. "I just want to say a few words," I said. "About my amazing husband." Ethan looked surprised. "Delaney," he murmured, like he wanted me to stop, but I smiled and kept going. "I know he doesn't like attention," I said, "but sometimes we have to drag greatness into the spotlight, right?" A few polite laughs. I glanced at Cassidy, who nodded encouragingly. When we met, Ethan was this shy, quiet guy who didn't even know how to order coffee without overthinking it. And look at him now, successful, steady, dependable. I meant it as praise, but the words sounded thin, almost mocking. I kept going, trying to fix it. He's worked so hard for everything he has. Maybe he's not the kind of guy who takes big risks or shoots for CEO positions, but he's the kind of man who stays, who shows up, even when life doesn't always go the way he planned. The table went still for a beat. I noticed Nancy's eyes narrow slightly. Ethan looked down at his plate. I took another sip of wine and pushed on. Not everyone gets to have a man like that. Some men chase promotions and forget about home. Ethan might not be that kind of man. But that's okay. I laughed lightly. He's stable, like a Volvo. People chuckled awkwardly. Cassidy giggled too loudly, and Mia covered her mouth like she wasn't sure if she was supposed to laugh. Drew looked amused, which encouraged me. I felt the warm buzz of attention, the power of the room focused on me. Ethan finally lifted his head. His smile didn't reach his eyes. "Thanks, Delaney," he said quietly. "That was generous." "Oh, come on," I said, still smiling. "Don't be so serious. I'm just teasing." He nodded once, then looked down again. The silence stretched. To fill it, I raised my glass and said, "To Ethan, the man who tries his best." Laughter again, louder this time. But it wasn't the warm kind. It was nervous, uncertain. I felt a flicker of discomfort but brushed it away. He needed to loosen up. Everyone needed to see he could take a joke. Ethan stood suddenly. "Thank you all for coming," he said, voice steady. "I really appreciate it." He didn't look at me. "I think I'm going to call it tonight." The table went dead quiet. I blinked, confused. "What? You're leaving? The cake isn't even out yet." He looked at me finally, and for a second, I saw something I'd never seen before. Complete detachment. "Enjoy the rest of the evening," he said, and walked out. I stood there frozen, holding my wine glass. Someone coughed. Mia whispered, "Wow." Cassidy mumbled, "He'll cool off." Drew leaned closer and said under his breath, "That was intense." I laughed, forcing lightness back into my voice. "He's just tired," I said. "You know Ethan, sensitive as always." But inside, my stomach twisted. The rest of the dinner dragged. People tried to restart the conversation, but the energy was gone. Nancy excused herself early. "You might want to check on him later," she said softly. "Sometimes words cut deeper than you think." I smiled tightly and told her not to worry. When everyone finally left, I sat in the empty restaurant, staring at the untouched cake. Drew texted again. "You okay?" He overreacted. I typed back, "Exactly." He's always been like this. By the time I got home, the house was quiet. His shoes were by the door, but his jacket was gone. I called his phone. No answer. I told myself he was just cooling off somewhere, maybe staying with his parents. He'd come back, like always. He'd see I was just joking. I poured another glass of wine and stood at the window, the reflection of the party balloons still floating behind me. They looked ridiculous now, like relics of something that was already gone. I told myself he'd thank me someday for teaching him to toughen up. But as the hours ticked by and the house stayed silent, a small, unfamiliar feeling crept in, something like fear. When I finally went upstairs, I noticed the photo on his nightstand, the one of us from our honeymoon. It was face down. I turned it back up, whispering to the empty room. "You're just being dramatic, Ethan. You'll see." But even as I said it, I couldn't shake the image of his eyes at the restaurant. Calm, cold, final. The next morning started wrong. The air in the house felt heavy, like the walls themselves were holding their breath. Ethan's side of the bed was untouched, his pillow perfectly in place. I told myself he'd gone to clear his head, maybe stayed at his parents' house. That was fine. He'd come home once he cooled off. He always did. I made coffee and posted a photo from the night before, me in my black dress, gold earrings catching the light. The caption read, "What a night. Grateful for everyone who came to celebrate Ethan's big day." The comments came fast. "You look stunning. Such a gorgeous couple." No one needed to know he'd walked out before the cake. Around noon, I texted him, "You done sulking yet?" No reply. At 2, "You could at least tell me where you are." Nothing. By 5, I started to get irritated. He was acting like a child. Who walks out of their own birthday dinner and disappears? When my sister Mia called, her voice was hesitant. "Hey, how's Ethan?" "He's fine," I said too quickly, "just being dramatic." "I mean, people were talking about last night," she said carefully. I rolled my eyes. "Let them talk. It was a joke. Everyone's too sensitive." "Delaney," she said, "you kind of humiliated him. In front of his parents." I felt my face heat. "Don't start. You were laughing too." "Yeah, but I didn't say he was a failure." "I didn't say that," I snapped, even though I knew I had. After we hung up, I sat staring at the kitchen counter where the leftover cake sat, untouched. The gold letters had melted slightly overnight. "To the man who never gives up." It looked more like a warning now. Cassidy came over later that evening, wearing her usual faux concern. "Girl, that dinner was brutal," she said, dropping onto the couch. "But honestly, he overreacted. If he can't take a little teasing, that's on him." "Exactly," I said, relieved to hear someone agree. "He always takes things too seriously." "Maybe he's embarrassed. Guys have fragile egos." I smirked. "Then maybe he should toughen up." We opened a bottle of wine and scrolled through photos. In most of them, Ethan was smiling, but his eyes told a different story. Tight, forced, like he'd already checked out. I deleted one where I was mid-laugh, afraid people would see what I hadn't noticed then, that I was the only one enjoying myself. Around 9, Drew texted, "Heard from Ethan yet?" "Nope," I replied, probably hiding at his mom's. "You should have seen her face. You'd think I committed a crime. She's old-fashioned. You just spoke your mind." Nothing wrong with that. I smiled, savoring the validation. Drew always knew what to say. Cassidy gave me a look. "Who are you smiling at?" "Work stuff," I lied. The next day, I went to the office, determined to act normal. People whispered in that half-curious, half-pitying way that made my skin crawl. Apparently, someone from the dinner, probably Mia, had told people about my speech. I brushed it off, told anyone who asked that Ethan had taken a joke too far. When I walked into the break room, Drew was there, leaning against the counter with that easy confidence that made everyone like him. "Rough weekend?" he asked. "You could say that," I said, pouring coffee. "He'll get over it," I smirked. That's what I keep telling myself. He looked at me a second longer than he should have. "You deserve someone who can handle you." The words lingered, soft and dangerous. That afternoon, I tried calling Ethan again. Still no answer. Around 4, a text finally came in. "I'm staying with my parents for a bit. Please don't come by." That was it. No explanation, no apology, nothing. I stared at the screen, disbelief giving way to anger. "Seriously? You walk out on your own birthday and now you're playing victim?" I typed, then deleted it. I didn't want to sound desperate. Instead, I sent, "Fine, take your space. But we need to talk like adults soon." He didn't respond. That night, I called his mother. Nancy answered on the second ring. "Hello, Delaney." Her voice was cool, polite, but distant. "Hi," I said, trying to sound casual. "Is Ethan there?" "He is. He's resting." "Oh, resting. That's nice. Maybe you could tell him to call his wife sometime." There was a pause. "He'll reach out when he's ready," she said. "He's hurt, Delaney." I laughed under my breath. "Hurt? Because of a joke? He's milking this." Nancy's tone sharpened. "You embarrassed him in front of everyone he cares about. You made him feel small on a night that was supposed to celebrate him." "Maybe if he acted like a man, I wouldn't have to." The words came out before I could stop them. Nancy inhaled sharply. "I think that's enough for tonight." Then she hung up. I stared at my phone, trembling, not with guilt but with frustration. They were all turning this into something it wasn't. I hadn't done anything unforgivable. People say worse things all the time. The next few days dragged. Ethan didn't come home. I started sleeping on his side of the bed, just so it wouldn't look so empty. I kept telling everyone he was just sorting things out. But by Friday, the silence was starting to feel real. At work, Drew became my escape. We'd text late at night, little jokes about office drama or his gym schedule. One night, I told him I missed talking to someone who actually got me. He replied, "Maybe you've just been talking to the wrong man." I stared at that line for a long time before replying with a single heart emoji. Saturday morning, I drove to Ethan's parents' house, ignoring his text about not coming. When Nancy opened the door, she looked surprised but not pleased. "Delaney," she said carefully, "Ethan's not here." "Where is he?" "He went for a drive. He'll be back later." I crossed my arms. "Fine, I'll wait." She didn't move aside. "That's not a good idea." "Excuse me." Her expression didn't change. "He needs time, Delaney. And space. You've already done enough." The calmness in her tone made something in me snap. "Enough? You act like I hit him. It was a joke. Everyone laughed." "Everyone pitied him," she said softly. "There's a difference." For a second, I couldn't breathe. Then I forced a smile. "You've always thought I wasn't good enough for him, haven't you?" Nancy's lips pressed together. "I think Ethan deserves respect. You call that humor, but it was cruelty dressed up as charm." I turned and walked back to my car, heart pounding. The nerve of that woman, acting like I was the villain. When I got home, there was a new email from Ethan. No greeting, no closing, just 3 sentences. "I'll be staying elsewhere for now. Please don't contact my family or show up at my parents' house again. We'll discuss next steps through email." E. Next steps? What did that even mean? My throat tightened as I reread it. I called him immediately. Voicemail. I tried again. Still nothing. That night, Cassidy called. "I heard from Mark that Ethan's been talking to a lawyer," she said. I laughed, but it came out shaky. "Oh, please. He's not that dramatic." "Delaney," she said quietly. "He's serious. Mark said Ethan asked about separating finances." For a second, the room tilted. "He wouldn't," I whispered. "He wouldn't do that." Cassidy hesitated. "You humiliated him. Maybe this is his way of taking control." After we hung up, I stood at the window, staring into the dark street. The house felt too big, too still. On the table, the cake box still sat unopened. I'd meant to throw it away, but I couldn't. I lifted the lid. The words had collapsed completely now, gold smears on white frosting. I told myself he was bluffing, that he just wanted to scare me. Ethan didn't have it in him to actually leave. He was too passive, too decent. That's what I loved and hated about him. But as I turned off the lights and climbed into bed, a thought kept clawing at me. What if this time his silence wasn't weakness? What if it was something else entirely? By Monday morning, the house felt like a museum of someone else's life. His shoes were still by the door, but the rest of his things, his laptop bag, his watch, the jacket he always hung on the back of the chair, were gone. I stood in the doorway for a long time, clutching my coffee and trying to convince myself he'd be back. He had to be. Ethan was predictable. He didn't make big decisions without talking things through. That was my department. Still, a strange quiet sat over everything. No sound of the shower running, no smell of his aftershave. I texted him again. Something simple. Can we please talk like adults? No response. A few minutes later, I sent another. This is getting ridiculous. You can't just ghost your wife. When that didn't work either, I threw my phone on the couch. At work, I put on my best smile. I wasn't going to give anyone the satisfaction of seeing me rattled. Drew stopped by my desk halfway through the morning, leaning against the partition like he owned the place. "Rough weekend?" he asked. His tone was soft, concerned. I hated how comforting it sounded. "You could say that," I said, pretending to scroll through my screen. He studied me for a second. "You know, he's lucky you even care enough to be upset. Most people would have walked out after being treated like that." I looked up. He walked out, not me. "Exactly," Drew said. "That says more about him than it does about you." His words sank in like a warm blanket. I smiled and said, "Thanks." The rest of the day dragged. When I finally got home, there was an envelope on the kitchen counter. My stomach dropped when I saw his handwriting. Inside was a short note, printed on plain white paper. "Delaney, I've taken some time to think. I'll be staying at a rental apartment for now. Please don't use my credit cards or the joint account. I've temporarily frozen access until we can discuss next steps. Take care of yourself. E." I stared at the page, reading it over and over. Frozen accounts, rental apartment, what next steps? I felt my face grow hot. Who did he think he was? Cutting me off like I was some gold digger? I grabbed my phone and called him, straight to voicemail. I left a message, my voice shaking more from anger than fear. "Ethan, what the hell is this? You can't just decide to control the money. That's not how marriage works. You're being petty. Call me back." He didn't. By the next day, my card declined at the grocery store. I laughed awkwardly at the cashier, saying it was probably a glitch, but the flush on my neck burned all the way to my ears. I had to use my personal debit card for a $17 purchase, and it felt humiliating. That evening, I called Cassidy. "He froze the accounts," I said, pacing the kitchen. She whistled. "Wow, he's really serious, huh?" "I don't get it," I said. "I said one stupid thing. One, and now he's acting like I cheated or something." "Maybe he's just trying to scare you," she offered. "Men like to feel in control." I nodded, even though a part of me wondered if control was exactly what I'd lost. The next day, Mia came over with coffee. She didn't say hello, just sat on the couch and stared at me. "He's not answering my calls either," she said. "Good," I muttered. "You shouldn't be calling him anyway." "I just wanted to make sure he's okay," she said. "Of course he's okay," I snapped. "He's the one playing the victim here." "Delaney," she said slowly, "I saw the video." I froze. "What video?" She took out her phone and turned the screen toward me. It was the restaurant, the toast, me laughing as I called him the man who tries his best. The sound of scattered laughter, followed by his quiet thank you, and the way he walked out. Someone, probably one of our friends, had recorded the whole thing and posted it in their story. My chest tightened. "Who would—" "It doesn't matter who," she interrupted. "It's out there. People are talking." I grabbed the phone and closed the video. "People talk about everything. It'll blow over." Mia sighed. "You embarrassed him in front of everyone. And now the internet." I couldn't meet her eyes. "He's the one who left," I muttered. "He's the one who turned this into a drama." Mia shook her head. "You really don't see it, do you? You made fun of him because you thought he wouldn't fight back. Now that he is, you're calling him cruel." "That's not what's happening," I said, voice rising. "He's punishing me." "No, he's protecting himself." She stood up. "And honestly, I don't blame him." When she left, I sat in the quiet house again, staring at the empty chair across from me. The last time we'd sat there together, Ethan had been fixing something on his laptop, and I'd been scrolling through online boutiques, complaining about needing a new bag. I couldn't even remember the last time I'd asked about his day. That night, I tried one more time. I called his number, and when he didn't pick up, I left another message. Ethan, please. This is getting ridiculous. You're making a scene now. Everyone's talking about you. I just want to talk, okay? No response. Around midnight, I got an email notification. My heart jumped, thinking it was him, but it was from the bank. Joint account suspended pending authorization. My throat went dry. This wasn't just silence anymore. This was planning. The next morning, Nancy showed up at my door. She didn't even bother with pleasantries. He's fine, she said, walking into the living room. He's working, but I came to get a few of his things. You could have called, I said sharply. I did. You didn't answer. She went upstairs without asking, and I followed. So what? You're his messenger now? I said. She glanced at me over her shoulder. No, I'm his mother, and I'm trying to stop this from getting uglier than it already is. I laughed bitterly. You think I'm the one making it ugly? She opened the closet and started folding his shirts. I think you pushed him past something you can't undo. He's been humiliated, Delaney. You can't unring that bell. I said I was sorry. You said it to everyone else, she replied calmly. You haven't said it to him. I can't apologize if he won't talk to me, I snapped. She closed the suitcase and turned to face me. Then maybe that's the point. After she left, I poured a drink, even though it was barely noon. My hands were shaking, and I hated that. I'd always been the one in control. But now, it felt like the floor was shifting beneath me, like Ethan was moving pieces on a chessboard I didn't even know existed. That night, Drew texted again. You okay? Heard things are messy, I replied. He froze my accounts. You need a distraction, he wrote. Dinner tomorrow? For a second I hesitated. Then I typed, sure. Maybe if Ethan wanted to play cold, I could play colder. Let him see he wasn't the only one who could move on. But as I crawled into bed later, the silence pressed down again. I stared at the ceiling, remembering how he used to hum softly before falling asleep, the faint rhythm of his breathing next to mine. Now the room was empty, and for the first time, the quiet didn't feel like peace. It felt like punishment. I met Drew for dinner the next night at a small place near the office. It was the kind of restaurant where the lights were low and everyone spoke in hushed tones, the kind that made you feel like whatever you were doing was more important than it really was. I told myself it wasn't a date, that I just needed to talk to someone who didn't make me feel like a villain. But when he stood up to greet me and smiled like he'd been waiting all day, I knew what I was walking into, and I didn't stop myself. You look amazing, he said as I sat down. Thanks, I replied, pretending not to notice the way his eyes lingered. The first drink went down fast. I told him I wasn't sure what Ethan wanted anymore, that everything had gotten so complicated. Drew said maybe I'd been carrying the relationship on my back for too long. He sounds like the kind of guy who hides behind being nice, he said. People like that never say what they want until they're already gone. That line stuck with me. It was exactly how I'd been describing Ethan to myself. Quiet, passive, weak. I let Drew's words settle into the space where guilt should have been. By dessert, I'd stopped pretending it was just a friendly dinner. Drew reached across the table and brushed my hand with his fingers. You don't have to explain yourself, he said softly. You deserve to feel wanted. I told myself it was harmless. I told myself Ethan had already left me long before this. When Drew kissed me goodnight outside the restaurant, I didn't pull away. The next morning, I woke up feeling oddly lighter. I convinced myself I was taking back control. Ethan could play his silent punishment game all he wanted, but I wasn't going to sit around waiting for him. At work, people were whispering again. I caught snippets of conversation when I walked past the break room. My name, Ethan's name, the word birthday. Someone had sent the video around. I overheard one coworker say, "She really said that in front of everyone." And another reply, "No wonder he left." I walked in, smiled like I hadn't heard a thing, and poured my coffee. "Busy morning?" I asked lightly. Everyone went quiet. I pretended not to notice and walked out. That night, Mia called again. "Delaney, I think you need to do some damage control," she said. "Damage control?" "I'm not running a campaign, Mia. It was one dinner. People are calling Ethan the most patient man alive. Do you know how bad that makes you look?" "I don't care what people think," I said, even though I did. "They only know one side." "Then tell your side, before he does." I hung up before she could say more. I wasn't going to beg anyone to understand me. The following week, Drew started showing up at my desk more often. He'd lean against the divider, make me laugh, compliment my perfume. It felt good, like I mattered again. When he suggested we take a weekend trip to the coast, I hesitated for maybe half a second. "Just to clear your head," he said. "You need a break from all this." I agreed. I told myself it was innocent. A little escape from all the tension. I didn't tell anyone where I was going. The hotel was nice. Clean sheets, ocean view, champagne on arrival. Drew was easy to be around, all confidence and smiles. He didn't ask questions about Ethan, and I didn't volunteer answers. For 2 days, I let myself believe I'd done the right thing, that this was what moving on looked like. But Sunday night, when I got home, the front hallway looked different. Half the furniture was gone. The painting above the stairs, his favorite, had been taken down. At first, I thought we'd been robbed. Then, I saw the envelope on the kitchen counter. It wasn't a note this time. It was a stack of documents, a letter from a law firm. My hands shook as I read the first line. Notice of intent to separate. Ethan Voss versus Delaney Voss. My chest tightened. I flipped through the pages. Financial accounts, property listings, photos, screenshots of texts between me and Drew. My face burned. He had everything. The phone rang. It was Cassidy. "Hey, I just saw Ethan at work," she said, sounding hesitant. "He looked calm." "Calm," I repeated. "What's that supposed to mean?" "He said he's taking steps to protect himself. He didn't seem angry, just done." I sank into a chair, staring at the papers. Protect himself from what? I didn't do anything illegal. "Delaney," Cassidy said softly, "he doesn't need to prove you broke the law, just that you broke trust." After she hung up, I called Drew. No answer. I texted him. "We need to talk. Urgent." No reply. I tried again. Nothing. By the next morning, his number went straight to voicemail. At work, he wasn't there. His desk was cleared out. HR said he'd transferred to another branch. Just like that, he was gone. I sat in my car during lunch, staring at my phone, scrolling through old messages. Every "you deserve better" and "he doesn't appreciate you" felt like poison now. When I finally worked up the courage to call Ethan, his number went straight to voicemail. "Ethan, I got the papers," I said. My voice cracked, but I pushed through it. "This is going too far. You can't just serve me like some stranger. We're supposed to talk about things. We're supposed to fix them. Please." No response. That night, I drove to his parents' house. The lights were on, and I could see his car in the driveway. Nancy opened the door, her expression unreadable. "I need to talk to Ethan," I said. "He's not available," she replied. "I saw his car." "He doesn't want to see you, Delaney." "Please," I said, lowering my voice. "I just want to talk to him." "We can fix this. I didn't mean what I said." Her eyes softened for a moment, then hardened again. "He's done trying to understand your intentions. He's taking the path that hurts least." "What path?" "The lawful one," she said quietly. "You'll hear from his lawyer." I felt the air leave my lungs. "You're helping him ruin me." Nancy shook her head. "No, he's helping himself start over." Then she closed the door. I sat in my car outside their house for 10 minutes, gripping the steering wheel until my fingers hurt. It was all unraveling faster than I could react. When I got home, the house felt smaller, emptier. The framed photos on the wall looked like strangers. My phone buzzed, an email notification from Ethan's lawyer, request for mediation regarding marital assets and evidence of infidelity. I closed my eyes. It wasn't supposed to go this way. He was supposed to be the quiet one, the one who forgave too easily. I'd thought he'd come crawling back like always, but now it was him who held the power. I poured myself another glass of wine, sat on the couch, and tried to convince myself I still had control. Maybe he was bluffing. Maybe this was just a scare tactic. I told myself he wouldn't go through with it, but deep down I already knew the truth. Ethan wasn't bluffing. He was just done. The clock ticked loudly in the background as I stared at the papers on the table. The legal language blurred together, heavy and final. For the first time, I realized this wasn't silence anymore. It was strategy, and I was the only one who hadn't noticed I'd already lost. The next morning, I woke up to a sound that made my stomach twist, the soft thud of mail dropping through the slot. For a moment, I just lay there, staring at the ceiling, pretending it was a normal day. Then I went downstairs and saw it, another envelope with that same law firm logo stamped neatly in the corner. I didn't open it right away. I made coffee first, checked my phone, scrolled through messages that weren't there. Drew hadn't texted. Ethan still hadn't called. When I finally tore the envelope open, my hands shook. It wasn't another warning. It was an official filing. Words like separation of assets, preliminary mediation, and representation confirmed jumped off the page. There was also a list of attachments, photos, bank records, emails, text messages. He had everything, every receipt, every late-night message between me and Drew. I couldn't even breathe for a second. The doorbell rang. I flinched so hard I almost spilled my coffee. When I opened the door, Nancy was standing there again, holding a small box. "Morning," she said quietly. "He asked me to drop this off." "What is it?" I asked, my voice coming out sharper than I meant. "Documents," she said, "and his house key." I stepped aside, but she didn't come in. "He doesn't want me to talk long," she said. "He asked me to tell you everything will go through the lawyers now." "So he's hiding behind paperwork," I said bitterly. "Typical." Nancy's expression didn't change. "No, Delaney. He's protecting himself. From you." That word, "from you," hit harder than I expected. "He's making me out to be some kind of monster," I said. Nancy sighed softly. "You made him feel like one for years. Maybe this is balance." Then she turned and walked back to her car. I stood in the doorway long after she left, gripping the box until my knuckles went white. Inside were printed photos of us, our wedding, vacations, birthdays, and one last envelope with my name written in his handwriting. I opened it slowly. "Delaney, this isn't revenge. It's relief. I'm not doing this to punish you. I'm doing it because I need peace, and I can't find it with you anymore. I wish you well. E." It didn't feel real. The Ethan I knew would have begged to talk, asked me to explain, tried to fix it. This version of him, the one who went silent, who gathered evidence, who hired a lawyer, felt like a stranger. I sat on the floor, surrounded by papers, trying to think. I couldn't lose everything. Not like this. I needed to talk to him, face to face. The next day, I drove to the address listed on the legal notice, the lawyer's office downtown. It was in one of those sleek buildings with glass walls and grey furniture, the kind of place that made you feel small the second you walked in. The receptionist looked up politely. "Do you have an appointment?" "I'm here to see Ethan," I said. "Voss. He's meeting with someone here." She checked her screen. "He's in a meeting right now with his attorney. Are you Mrs. Voss?" The word stung. "Yes," I said quickly. She nodded. "You're welcome to wait, but there'll be some time." I sat in the waiting area, pretending to scroll through my phone. Through the frosted glass, I could see shadows moving, a man sitting still, calm, while another spoke across the desk. I recognized Ethan's shape immediately. That same steady posture he always had when he was working through something. When the door opened, he came out holding a folder, dressed in a grey suit I didn't even know he owned. His face didn't change when he saw me. Not surprise, not anger, just calm. "Delaney," he said quietly. "Ethan," I said, standing. "We need to talk." "There's nothing to discuss," he replied. "Of course there is," I said. "You can't just hand me papers and disappear." "I didn't disappear," he said. "I just stopped engaging in a cycle that keeps hurting both of us." I laughed, but it came out shaky. "Oh, please. Don't act like you're some saint. You're divorcing me because I made one bad joke." His jaw tightened. "You didn't just make a joke. You humiliated me. You betrayed me. And you've been telling yourself it's nothing for so long that you actually believe it." I opened my mouth to argue, but he didn't let me. "This isn't about punishment," he said. "It's about boundaries. You crossed every one of mine and I let you. That ends now." I felt my throat tighten. "So that's it? You're just done?" He nodded. "Yes, I'm done." I wanted to scream at him, shake him, anything to make him react. But he just walked past me, quiet and steady, and the lawyer followed behind, giving me a sympathetic look that made me want to throw something. After they left, I sat in the lobby until the receptionist asked if I was all right. I nodded, though my hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold my purse. When I got home, the silence felt heavier than before. I poured a drink and opened my laptop. If he wanted to play this legal game, maybe I could too. I Googled divorce rights, community property, spousal support. My heart steadied a little as I read. He couldn't just cut me off completely. There were laws. But when I clicked through the bank portal, my stomach dropped again. The accounts weren't just frozen, they were separated. Everything tied to him had been moved into his name alone. The only account left open was mine, with less than $2,000 in it. That night, I called Cassidy. She didn't answer. I called Mia next. She picked up on the third ring. "Delaney," she said, sounding tired. "Maybe you should stop calling people about this. Everyone's heard." "Heard what?" I asked. "That he's filed for separation and moved into his own place. People are saying he's handling it with Grace." I laughed bitterly. "Grace? He's ruining me." "Delaney," she said softly, "he's rebuilding himself. You can't see the difference, but everyone else does." I hung up on her. For the first time, I noticed how empty the house sounded. Every clock tick echoed. The refrigerator hummed too loud. Even the shadows felt like they were keeping distance from me. The next morning, I drove past his parents' house again. His car wasn't there. I sat parked across the street for almost an hour, watching the curtains, waiting for something. When Nancy finally stepped outside, she didn't even look surprised to see me. "You shouldn't be here," she said gently. "I just need 5 minutes," I said. "Please." She shook her head. "He's not here. And even if he was, he wouldn't come out." "Tell him I'm sorry," I said, my voice breaking for the first time. "Tell him I didn't mean to hurt him." "I think he already knows that," she said. "But he also knows it doesn't change anything." I watched her go back inside, the door clicking softly behind her. That evening, I opened the documents again, reading them line by line. There it was in black and white: division of property, transfer of ownership, mediation request. Every sentence felt like a nail sealing a coffin. When I got to the last page, I saw his signature, steady, clean, final. Below it, a single note, handwritten in the margin: "Please don't contact me directly. All communication through counsel." I stared at that line until my eyes blurred. For years, I'd been the one who set the tone in our marriage. What we talked about, when we argued, how we made up. Now he was the one dictating the terms. Calm, professional, distant. And for the first time in our marriage, I realized Ethan had learned how to hurt me without raising his voice, without slamming a single door. He'd found the one weapon I could never fight against, his silence backed by the law.